Clear blue water, take it home. Bring back them good old days I used to know. Must have been something in the water in that old sawmill creek. Baptized in the holler, I got down on my knees.
Morning guys, Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. In 1660, Zach Walton wrote a book called The Complete Angler. And this book basically told how to fish from shore using a long rod that he described as being 12 to 15 feet in length, made from some type of hardwood. He preferred that it be sectioned or joined together and tapered to the end. Later on they used bamboo and split cane and things like that as well. And he talked about having a line made of horsehair for this rod that was tied to the end of the rod, and then not too long into the period in the early 1700s they were already using an eye on the front of that rod, very similar to what we put on cane poles now. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. And connected to that horsehair line they used some type of leader material or tippet that was silk or gut, and then they would tie their fly or their hook to that to fish with. The interesting thing to me is that back in that day, that was how they fly fished. They didn't have the reel and the casting and all of that stuff that we have today with modern fly fishing. They tied their own flies, and he has lots of examples of different flies that are still used to this day from the 1660s in this book. And he would tie it to his line, and he would basically dip fish with it. Pull it up, drop it down, flip it over, twist it around a little bit, just like you would fly fish today with some type of tenkara rod or something to that effect. And we're going to utilize a cane pole for this, but we're also going to utilize our Black Widow composite cane pole, which is like 13, 14 feet long, because it will give us the exact same effect in a 21st century long hunter type mentality. We can use that to affect the same thing, and we'll have to figure out what we're going to use for the fly type line or the heavier line between the leader and the pole. We'll probably use some type of bank line for that. But today we're going to go out and we're going to harvest some bamboo not very far from here. We're going to bring a piece back and we're going to fashion a bamboo pole. We'll have to let it season for a little bit because it will be green cut bamboo. But I'm going to show you how to cut that down, how to attach your eye to the front of it, and how to set that up for fishing so that we can also use that during this On the Water's Edge series to fish as well. Stay with me, guys. Got it?
Yep.
Okay, so we have this big piece of bamboo, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to knock all of the growth nodules off of it. Now, bear in mind that from a self-reliance standpoint, if I had to go very far to get this, I would probably take some of these shoots that I'm cutting off and plant them in a wet area on my property so that I could grow my own bamboo for future use. But right now I'm just trying to cut them all off and see how long this rod is, because I cut it more than long enough. So basically right now I'm just limbing it. Okay, so we have cut this thing down to just a little bit, about ½ an inch above a node right here. The nodes being where it grows out and grows other shoots. And we're about thin enough, we're about where I want to be. We've got good flexibility here in this rod, so we're not going to break it very easily. Almost like an ugly stick there. Okay, so now we're just going to count backwards, and we're going to try to get something that's about, considering that our canoe is 13 feet, we really don't want it any longer than our canoe. So I'm going to try for 12 feet, and I'm just going to pace count that off. Okay, I've walked this thing back now and counted it, and it is about 3 nodes longer than it needs to be. It's actually almost 4 nodes, but I'm going to leave one extra one on here just because I want to make sure, ensure that if something happens or I break part of this rod, I've got some room to cut it off if I want to. So I'm going to cut it off right here at this node. And you can see that gives me a hollow tube. Definitely not going to get rid of that because we can use all of these tubes for storing other things. Fishing tackle, what have you. Hooks, lines, sinkers, all kinds of things we can do with that. So we're definitely not going to get rid of that. Set that aside. And now we've got a good flush surface for our handle, and we need to put an eye on here. Okay, the next little task that we're going to have to perform here is where I cut these nodes off with my axe, or cut these shoots off with my axe. I'm going to want to go back through here with my knife and trim those up because they're pretty pointed. So we'll go ahead and trim those off and get them to where they're a little bit more flush in our hand, so we're not poking ourselves with anything. And we'll have to do that all the way up the pole, and then we can fashion our eye for the end of the pole. Okay, so we've got a piece of wire here that's just basically a flag, like a gas line type flag or phone line type flag. And this is what we're going to use to make our eye with. And basically we're just going to turn a circle in this thing, or turn a hook in this, and give ourselves a little bit of length on here, just like this. And that's really all we need, because we'll create the eye when we put this on the end of the rod. I'm going to squeeze it down just a little bit. And that's about what I'm looking for. Go ahead and cut that off right there for the moment. Of course, I can make several of them out of this easy enough now. So now what we want to do is we want to attach this to the end of the pole. And I want to make sure that I get it sticking out just a little bit on the end here, because that's where our line's going to go to. It doesn't need to be a complete circle, because our line's going to be attached to the front of it anyway. Okay, so once I've got the eye the way I want it there, I'm going to take just my file real quick, and I just want to dress this edge up at the end of this node to make sure that it's rounded off really good. It's not got anything sharp on it. Because our eye is going to be in front of that, like this. We're going to force it on there, just like that. And then we're going to wrap it so that it can't go anywhere. We want that to sit on there pretty flush. So if we have to trim that down just a little bit, we can do that too. There we go. I like that. That's sitting on there real good. Okay. Now we got to cut ourselves a piece of bank line here real fast, and we'll give ourselves more than we need on purpose, because we're going to wrap this thing. And the way we're going to wrap it is we're going to take a loop in the line just like this and give ourselves enough tag sticking out this other end that we can yank on it when we're done. So about right there. And then we want to go down past this eye, turn our rod the way we want to wrap it, and then we're going to just lay this loop on the rod just like this, with this loop going this way and the eye loop going this way. And we're going to take this other line and start wrapping basically just a lash, just like this, and keeping it just as tight as we can get it all the way around, stacking them up all the way down. And keeping this tight is really important, because you're actually binding this eye now to the rod. And we're going to go down a little bit past the eye, 5 or 6 turns past it. And then we're going to come up with our last one and we're going to put it through that loop that we created on the end, right here, just like this, and pull it up until it's tight. And then what we want to do is, holding this in place, we want to pull this other end, this tag, so that it basically yanks that loop up inside, just like this. And if we grab that with some kind of a stick like we've done in the past, that'll help a lot. We can just wrap a stick around this line a few times, just like we were doing any other lashing, and give it a good yank until it pops. If it breaks, that's fine. It's already going to be up inside there anyway. It's not a big deal. Then we'll trim this other side off. Close. Just like that. And then what we'll do is we'll just melt that in with our lighter a little bit and bind it to itself. And then we can come back, if we wanted to, with some type of a pine resin or something like that. Easy enough. And coat this whole thing with pine resin if we wanted to make sure that it was good and secure. But now we have an eye that we can put our line to. We don't have to tie directly to the pole. And that was, you know, it was a very good improvement that was made to this fishing system, or to the system of fishing like this, even as early as the 1750s. People were putting a forged eye on the end of a fishing rod like this. Reels didn't come along till later, past 1770. But this method of fishing was good for almost 300 years for a reason, I'm sure. Okay guys, we got our cane pole ready to go. I'd say she's a good 12 and a half, 13 foot long. We got our eye ready to go. All we need to do now is tie some line on here and do a little 18th century fly fishing, or just a little bit of still fishing off the bank. Either way is good, as long as it puts food in your belly, right? I appreciate you joining me for this video. I thank you for everything you do for me, for my school, for my family. I'll be back to another one as quick as I can, guys, and we will be continuing the On the Water's Edge series real soon. Stay tuned.